Genmaicha is a delicious Japanese green tea made by combining toasted rice with tea leaves. But can you make your own at home? That's exactly what we're going to find out. We'll be roasting up some rice and combining it with different types of tea leaves to see how it compares with a real Genmaicha. But before we start out, what is Genmaicha exactly? Genmaicha is what's known as a blended tea, meaning it's made by combining tea leaves with other ingredients. Genmaicha, literally brown rice tea, is the most popular type of blended tea in Japan, and it's even become famous internationally. Originally, this was a way to make the tea harvest last longer during times of economic hardship, but people soon began to fall in love with the warm, toasted flavor, and now it's become a beloved tea in its own right. This is a super common tea, and we've encountered it many times during our sourcing trips to Japan. Each Genmaicha is slightly different. For example, when I was sitting down to a tea tasting with a tea farmer in Shizuoka, I was introduced to a Hoji Genmaicha, or roasted Genmaicha. This is made by combining toasted rice with roasted tea leaves. He explained that this tea is so low in caffeine that they even serve it to young children and at hospitals. Because rice doesn't contain any caffeine, it brings down the average caffeine content of the tea, making this a good tea to enjoy in the late afternoon or evening. But Hoji Genmaicha isn't the only type of Genmaicha variation. Later on in the video, we'll explore a few very different types of Genmaicha tea, each with their own flavor and health benefits. But first, we need to make our rice. The big question is, do you use brown rice or white rice for Genmaicha? While the name literally translates to brown rice tea, nowadays it's mostly made with white rice. Brown rice is protected inside a husk, but white rice has the hull removed. This means that the starches of the rice are exposed, which makes it easier to extract the flavor in the case of Genmaicha. But for this experiment, I wanted to try it with brown rice first. I put some of the brown rice into a pan and turned it onto a high heat just to get things started. Once the pan was hot and the rice began roasting, I lowered it to medium heat and made sure to stir the rice around very quickly so it didn't burn. You can see the rice grains are turning around and dancing in the heat, which means they're cooking. You can tell the rice is done when the color changes and you begin to pick up on some of the more roasted fragrances. After about 10 minutes of stirring on medium heat, I took the rice off and took a closer look at it. Some of the rice kernels are beginning to crack open, and actually these kernels can even pop like a popcorn kernel. This would make it a popcorn Genmaicha, which will have a slight impact on the flavor. Once you have the toasted rice, you need to decide which kind of tea leaves to use. Gyokuro Genmaicha, for example, is made from the long-shaded dark green tea leaves. These produce a sweeter flavor in the tea, which pairs very well with the roasted rice. This tea will be higher in caffeine and theanine compared to other Genmaichas. You can even mix in some matcha powder to produce a Matcha Genmaicha. This matcha powder will be released into the first infusion of the tea to create a cloudy green color and a stronger flavor. In the case of Matcha Genmaicha, the tea begins to taste more like a normal green tea, as the vegetal flavors overpower the toasted rice. You'll also get more health benefits with this tea because you're drinking more of the tea leaf. So depending on the leaf you use, you can have a different balance of flavor between the rice and the tea leaves. The Matcha Genmaicha will be the most leaf heavy, and the Gyokuro Genmaicha will be the most rice heavy. Most Genmaicha is actually made from Bancha leaves. Bancha is the second most common green tea in Japan, and it's made from older tea leaves or leaves from later harvests. This tea is higher in minerals and lower in caffeine, so it's the perfect tea for the afternoon or evening. For this experiment, we're going to be using a Bancha we found from Mr. Masuda in Shizuoka. After trying a few different Bancha teas around Japan, this one had by far the best flavor. I'll mix this tea in with the genmai, or roasted rice, and compare it to the popcorn Genmaicha. To brew these teas, I'll be using 90 degrees Celsius and a brewing time of 30 seconds. This is a flash brewing technique, using higher temperature water and a shorter brewing time than normal. This is a good way to bring out the more toasted rice flavors from the tea. I found that the flavor of the homemade Genmaicha was lacking. It really just tasted like a Bancha, and the toasted rice or cereal flavor profiles weren't coming through. I think the reason is because I used brown rice, so the starches are trapped within this rice hull and it's harder to extract. So I tried the experiment again, this time using white rice, which actually roasted much quicker. Once toasted, the color and shape began to resemble a typical Genmaicha. The rice grains were crunchy and they had a much stronger aroma. I mixed the toasted white rice in with the sencha leaves and brewed the tea for 1 minute. The difference was like night and day. The white rice really produced a much stronger flavor with notes of cereal and corn. So if you're going to try this experiment at home, definitely use white rice. I think the one benefit of roasting your own rice at home is that once you have it, you can add it to just about any tea and experiment with the flavors. Otherwise, if you want to try some of the best Genmaicha we found during our travels around Japan, you can find them all on our website, neoteas.com. Thank you all so much for watching. We'll see you next time.